What is the magnitude of the salary reduction that a particular player needs to consider in order to provide them with the ideal spending power this summer? What is the financial capacity available to that team? What salary cap limits should be carefully observed? And what exceptions are available to them? This is your comprehensive guide to everything related to the salary cap for this team in the 2026 season. If you've been looking for a simplified explanation of this team's salary cap situation, you've come to the right place, as today I will break down their financial scenarios, analyze their accounts, and try to do this as clearly as possible. Stay until the end of this video, as I will present a specific scenario with concrete acquisitions that could be considered one of the most favorable outcomes for this team in this off-season. With that in mind, interact with this video, share your thoughts below, and most importantly, consider subscribing for more analysis, and let's dive into the salary cap analysis for the 2026 season. Now, here is a detailed and personalized view of the salary cap for the upcoming season. Most of these figures are general estimates but were obtained from reliable sources. First, let's establish a basic understanding and a few important observations before I begin this analysis. Today, my main focus will be the scenario in which a certain player decides to reduce their salary, detailing all the available methods and options for doing so. I am aware that there have been reports suggesting that this player will not accept a salary cut this summer. However, circumstances can always change, and I will proceed with my analysis anyway. Presenting the scenario in which a salary cut occurs and all the smaller possibilities within this broader context. Additionally, in this discussion, I will focus on free agent signings rather than exploring all the trade options that could affect spending capacity and available roster spots. Let's explore the complex salary cap scenario and the various mini-situations within this broader framework. In this conversation, my primary focus will be on free agent signings, rather than diving into the numerous trade possibilities that could influence spending capacity and open roster spots. I will address trade scenarios in a later video, and the most favorable off-season scenario will certainly include a trade by the end of this analysis. For now, let's examine the fundamental aspects of the salary cap situation and the different options available. Especially regarding the amount of salary cut necessary to maximize financial flexibility for the general manager this summer. Without further ado, let's delve into the basic structure of the salary cap spreadsheet for the 2025 and 2026 seasons. When reviewing this spreadsheet, we notice that the four main players occupy the highest positions due to specific stipulations related to their contracts. One of these players has a player option, as do others, which means they allow the possibility to opt out. Some have non-guaranteed contracts, indicating that the team could choose not to guarantee these contracts, removing them from the roster. Assuming everyone remains on the team, and a player decides to stay, along with others, and the team guarantees certain contracts for potential use in a trade, this amount could be significant in salary cap equivalency scenarios. Additionally, another player's contract would be guaranteed, as it is key to affordable. If all these assumptions are confirmed, the team would have a certain number of athletes on the roster, totaling a significant amount. Notably, a second-round pick was included in this analysis, which would generate a minimal cost. This player was considered because of the reduced cost, as the team seeks to restructure and build around a key player, needing as many affordable contracts and talents as possible. Therefore, this pick was incorporated into the equation. It remains uncertain whether the team will trade this pick or keep it abroad, which would mean it wouldn't affect their salary cap situation. However, currently, the team has a total of 17 athletes. The contracts and players the team can acquire are important aspects to evaluate. Thus, he included the 55 pick in this analysis. It remains uncertain whether the team will trade this pick or keep it, which, in this case, wouldn't affect their budget. At the moment, the team has a group of 17 athletes, totaling $192,600,000. When examining the financial rules, three main limits stand out that the team must closely follow. The luxury tax for the upcoming season is estimated at $187,800,000. The first limit was set at $195,900,000, while the second limit is set at $27,800,000. At this point, the team is $3,300,000 below the first limit. For the next season, the team aims to stay below this first limit, as there are more restrictions when exceeding each of them. I won't get into the complexities at this moment, but with the team $3,300,000 below the first limit, it can be simplified by saying they are operating at an ideal point, above the luxury tax and below the first limit. The exceptions available to teams in this context include the $5,600,000 MLA mid-level exception for taxpayers, which means that if they use this exception and exceed the first limit, they would be restricted to the second limit. If the team opts for the taxpayer MLA, a total of $192,600,000 plus $5,600,000 would push them above the first limit, marking them as a team exceeding this limit, restricting them to a total of $207,800,000, an amount they likely don't want to surpass. Within the team's context, there are some alternatives to free up the non-taxpayer MLA of $14,100,000. Teams eligible to use the non-taxpayer MLA are those below the first limit and with enough space to accommodate this amount without exceeding the $195,900,000 first limit. Additionally, there is also the biannual exception of $5,100,000 that the team would have available if they can create enough space below the first limit. Like all other teams, the team can also use the veteran minimum exception. The following year, a player with 6 years of experience will receive $2,800,000 as the minimum for veterans, while a player with 7 years of experience will receive around $3 million, with the amount gradually increasing from there. All of this information is crucial for understanding the team's financial situation and the alternatives available to them. Similarly, all teams also have access to the veteran minimum exception. Next year, a player with 6 years of experience will receive $2,800,000 as the minimum, and a player with 7 years of experience will earn approximately $3 million, with this amount gradually increasing. These numbers are essential for the final salary cap records. Now that we have a general idea of the amounts involved, let's explore different scenarios and determine how much a player would need to reduce their salary to free up the $14,100,000 from the non-taxpayer MLA. And maybe even the $5,100,000 from the buy. First, if the team intends to use the non-taxpayer MLA, the player would need to waive their option. Therefore, let's consider removing the $53,600,000 from the records. What other ways can the team free up a bit more resources before requesting this salary reduction? This is an approach we would like to take last. The first and simplest way to free up more funds before asking for a larger reduction is to opt not to guarantee a specific player's contract. Let's remove the $3 million from that player's records. If that player is removed, we would have 12 athletes left, and we'd be $6,600,000 below the first limit. While this is still not enough to trigger the $14,100,000 MLA, we would have enough room to use the $5,100,000 buy. It is important to note that the team would only have 12 players on their roster if that player is excluded, and thus would need to fill the roster with at least 2 players, possibly with veteran minimums. This would inevitably cancel out the margin of $6,600,000 we had below the first limit. Thus, there is no easy way to free up more funds without the player accepting a salary reduction. Let's reverse this process in a different way and actually include the non-taxpayer MLA in the salary cap records and work from there. Imagine that the team completes a roster of 15 players using the non-taxpayer MLA. Here are the records without prioritizing the salary reduction for the player. If you look at this spreadsheet, I've already added the information. Let's analyze the team's salary cap situation in detail. Imagine that the team is building a roster with a total of 15 players using the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. Here, we can see how the finances could look without immediately considering the salary adjustment for a key player. In this graph, the non-taxpayer mid-level exception is listed as $14,100,000. Additionally, 2 veteran players have been included, each with a salary of $3 million, resulting in a total cost of $6 million. Currently, we have 15 players, which represents a full roster without considering the positions for 2 players. It's worth noting that the team could choose to keep only 14 players before a training camp, which is common among general managers, but here we are assessing the complete scenario. With this configuration of 15 players and not yet including the relevant player's contract, the 14 players we have a total approximately $156,700,000. The limit to consider at this moment is the first cap ceiling of $195,900,000 because in order to use the $14,100,000 from the non-taxpayer mid-level exception, we need to stay below this first ceiling. We are currently at $156,700,000 without including the new contract for the key player. From here, we just need to perform a subtraction. Let's take the first ceiling value of $195,900,000 and subtract the team's current total of $156,700,000. The result of this operation will indicate that the player will need to waive their option and accept a reduction of almost $14,300,000, receiving only $13 million next season, so the team can use the non-taxpayer MLE. In this scenario, the team would have a complete roster of 15 players totaling about $195,700,000, creating a space of $200,000 below the first cap ceiling. So, would the player really accept a reduction of $14 million next season? And if they do, who exactly would they accept this reduction for? It's worth remembering that the team can also use $5,100,000 from the biannual exception. If we consider this amount, we would need to ask the player to accept an even greater salary cut. Therefore, is there a realistic approach for the team to effectively use both the non-taxpayer MLE and the biannual exception while staying below the first cap ceiling? Let's investigate this more deeply. By including the $5,100,000 from the biannual exception, the team would need to ask the player to accept an even larger salary reduction. So, is there a sustainable way for the team to use both exceptions while staying below the first cap ceiling? Let's dive deeper into this analysis. What I adjusted in the previous analysis to this one is that I removed a veteran player from the calculation, who was receiving $3 million. This change made it possible to free up $3 million. Additionally, I suggested that the player consider an additional $2 million salary cut. This way, they would earn $37 million next season, allowing for the accommodation of both the $14,100,000 from the non-taxpayer MLE and the $5,100,000 from the biannual exception. This is how the situation could look. We would have a total of 15 players, with only one new addition in the veteran minimum category, in addition to including one new player from the biannual exception and one new player from the non-taxpayer mid-level exception. With this complete roster and the player accepting almost $16 million in salary cuts, the total would rise to $195,800,000. Which would be $100,000 below the initial $195,900,000 ceiling. Therefore, we've achieved this configuration. However, the crucial question remains, would the player really accept a salary reduction of over $16 million to make this work? This is still uncertain. But this would be the need. For now, let's assume they agree to some sort of salary reduction. However, at this stage, I believe 16 million is a substantial loss and would like to preserve as much of their earnings as possible. So, are there alternatives that could be explored to prevent the player from having to take such a significant pay cut? Let me present a scenario that could allow us to save more resources. Now, let me clarify this new approach for you. In this scenario, we restore $1,200,000 to the player. The way we achieved this was by having a player not exercise their option, leading the team to resign them to a new 3-year contract. However, the first year of this new agreement would actually be lower than their expected earnings for next season. They were set to earn about 15 million this year, but by entering into a new 3-year contract, the team negotiated for their first year salary to be only 14 million. And that's how we gained that extra million. Currently, the expectation is that the player will earn around $15 million next season. However, by signing a new 3-year contract, the team decided to adjust the situation by establishing that the first year salary would be $14 million. This way, we've freed up an additional million to benefit LeBron James. This way, we simultaneously solved two challenges by securing a long-term contract for the player and, at the same time, achieving a reduction in the first year salary. Additionally, we were able to offer LeBron James a bit more while keeping the team $200,000 below the initial salary cap ceiling, still being able to use the non-taxpayer funds and the buy. So, it looks like we've managed to handle multiple issues at once. However, realistically, I doubt the management will demonstrate excessive ambition. I believe that if we can free up the non-taxpayer funds of $14,100,000, the team will be happy and want to try to open the $5,100,000 as well. When looking at the accounts, the minimum for veteran players next season is around $3 million, and the buy don't exceed that much. I don't think the management wants to ask LeBron James for a salary cut bigger than necessary, and I don't see this difference of $2 million between the buy and the veteran minimum being decisive for signing a starting or backup player. Therefore, let's assume that, moving forward, everything stays as it is. However, let's disregard the buy from this equation and consider that the team is focused only on freeing up the non-taxpayer funds, evaluating the situation where the player decides to leave. And the team sends them to a new 3-year agreement, with the first year being $14 million. What would this development look like? It is a new scenario I'm presenting because I believe the best way to maximize the non-taxpayer funds, if the intention is to use them this season, is to actually split them. Let me present the split scenario of the non-taxpayer funds. It is the new structure where the buy was completely eliminated and we have the athlete signing a new contract, with $14 million in the first year. In this context, we split the non-taxpayer funds into two parts, each worth $7 million. This way, the team could send two different players, each for $7 million. They could reorganize this however they like, possibly signing one player for $5 million and the other for $9 million. It is feasible to divide the $14,100,000 as desired. In my example, I opted for an equal split, $7 million for each. In this context, LeBron James would need to accept a salary reduction of $10 million, receiving $43,600,000. We could then sign a player using the non-taxpayer funds for $7 million, and then a second player for the same amount. We would still have enough resources to sign a veteran with about 7 years of experience, whose salary would be around $3 million. The rest of the roster would be formed similarly. Looking at this new composition, we would still have a total of 15 players, excluding the two-way signings. All these amounts would total $195,800,000. Therefore, we'd be $100,000 below the initial salary cap of $195,900,000. In my view, this is the most efficient and effective way to employ the non-taxpayer funds. I know that, previously, management never divided this amount, but I believe this might be the year to do so, as several free agents might face difficulties in this market, just as has happened in previous years. And the situation might worsen. Instead of focusing all efforts on a single non-taxpayer fund and offering 14 million to one player, why not try to sign two quality players, whether as starters or reserves, for contracts of 7 million each? Additionally, this approach allows these contracts to be used in future, more significant drafts. Of course, if the team manages to get a high-level free agent willing to accept the $14,100,000, then, in that case, there is no need to split. It's just about giving the total to a single player. However, if they can't bring the desired athlete, it might be advantageous for the team to split this amount equally and try to acquire two quality players, either for starting roles or a permanent backup role. 1 million, then that's it. Don't separate this. Just allocate the total non-taxpayer Emily amount to a single athlete. However, if they can't secure the desired player, it might be strategic for the team to divide this total equally and try to acquire two equality players or exceptional support players. These are, in essence, all the options the team can consider within the structure of the non-taxpayer MLE buy, but there is one more additional scenario that has not been discussed. While this might not be very likely, it is a topic worth addressing. Let's take a look at my next parole. Does anyone notice the differences in this parole compared to the previous ones he saw? What? Oh, you noticed. This looks like a children's program, but with purple and gold clues. In my revised parole, you can see that DFS is no longer present because there is a possibility that DFS chooses not to exercise their player option and decides not to resign with the team due to feeling undervalued. The team might not be willing to meet their salary demands. So, we've presented the scenario without DFS. If DFS decides not to exercise their player option and signs with another team, then LeBron James wouldn't need to accept a salary reduction. As the team would have the $14,100,000 from the non-taxpayer MLE available to use. Therefore, if for some reason you're not a fan of DFS and think the team could acquire someone better using the $4,100,000 from the non-taxpayer MLE, here is the situation. Analyzing this roster, the team consists of 14 players, excluding DFS. The non-taxpayer MLE is accounted for, and even included two veteran players with over 9 years of experience. Veteran players with 9 years of experience are expected to receive $3,300,000 next year. Therefore, we have 3 new athletes, 1 from the non-taxpayer MLE and 2 from the veteran minimum salary exception. Even though we don't have a full roster of 15 players, I believe this is how the team prefers to manage things as they approach training camp. In this scenario, Altese values total $195,600,000. This would leave us $300,000 below the first limit. At some point during the season, likely toward the end, we could use this $300,000 to sign a 15th player to the roster. This is how the team prefers to organize things as they approach training. Looking at this situation, Altese amounts total $195,600,000. This would leave us $300,000 below the first limit. At some point during the season, we could use this $300,000 to add a 15th player to the roster. In summary, if DFS leaves, LeBron James wouldn't need to accept a salary cut. The non-taxpayer Emily space would be available. The only adjustment LeBron James would have to consider is if they want to forego the $5,100,000 from the buy. In which case he would need to accept a reduction of approximately $6 million from his salary of $53,600,000 from the player option. So yes, that's the situation without DFS. Now, let's explore one of the most favorable scenarios for the team's off-season. It will include some concrete names for you. In this ideal scenario Ibe envisioned, he made a trade, so keep that in mind. In a future video, we will examine different trade possibilities and make the calculations and adjustments in this salary cap sheet. But for now, let's investigate my ideal off-season scenario for the team, with LeBron James accepting a salary reduction. Let's go. Let me explain everything to you. Ibe highlighted all the new additions and modifications in green, and the start from the beginning. LeBron James would accept a reduction of about 17 million, earning only 40 million next year. We have DFS in their new contract, earning 14 million in their first year of a new 3-year deal. And then we have Nick Claxton. What? That's right, in this scenario, he took the initiative to trade for Nick Claxton. The players that would leave would be Maxi Kleber and Gabe Vincent. Their combined salaries practically match the value of $25,300,000 of Nick Claxton. This trade would be interesting. I still have Dalton Connect here. And the main asset the team would send in this deal would be an unprotected 2031 first-round pick along with some pick swaps. Maybe the team would need to include Dalton Connect. I don't think it's necessary, but I'd try to keep that. This trade could be feasible. I have Dalton Connect in mind as an option. The main asset the team would send in this operation would be an unprotected 2031 first-round pick, along with some picks. The team might need to part with Dalton Connect, but I think they hesitate on that. In one of my ideal visions, I imagine Gabe, Maxi Kleber, and Shake Milton, along with a 2031 first-round pick and 2 pick swaps, being traded for Nick Claxton. Gabe, Shake, and Maxi are all on expiring contracts. So, this would be a significant change. The team would get a quality rim trade with Nick Claxton, was already being priced by Luka Doncic. What he did next was split the non-taxpayer MLE into 2 parts, with 7 million each. With these values, he signed Brook Lopez for 7 million and Nickeil Alexander-Walker for 7 million. I'm not sure what these players will ultimately receive, but this is my ideal vision. And in this scenario, they would accept 7 million each. You might not be satisfied with Brook Lopez. We could swap this name for another, like Steven Adams. If Steven Adams was willing to accept 7 million, he'd also accept it. However, I feel that Brook Lopez is more likely to accept a $7 million contract than Steven Adams. As for Nickeil Alexander-Walker, I believe 7 million is within what he might accept, even though other teams might offer him the full non-taxpayer MLE, which is 14 million. But again, this is my ideal vision. Somehow, we managed to convince Nickeil Alexander-Walker to accept only 7 million. So, these are the 3 new key names for the team: Nick Claxton coming from a trade, Brook Lopez, non-taxpayer MLE number 1, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, non-taxpayer MLE number 2. With this, I feel the team really transformed its roster around Luka Doncic, acquiring 2 great starting players with different roles. One of them is a rim threat, Nick Claxton, while the other is an excellent spacer who can also block shots and occupy space in the painted area due to his strengths. And, in addition, we have Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who can act as our perimeter defender alongside Luka Doncic. Is becoming our new Max Christie-like player. We also have one more veteran on the team. I'm looking to bring Dante Exum in to strengthen our defense on offense, adding height and wingspan to the point guard position. It's worth noting that Luka Doncic created a good connection with Dante Exum over the last 2 years, and Exum revitalized his career in the NBA in the last 2 seasons. Although he faced some injuries last season, he is ready to help. This scenario would result in a total of 14 players on the team, with a combined salary of $195,800,000. LeBron opted for a salary reduction of about $17 million, which leaves US $100,000 below the first salary cap range. So, we managed to achieve all our goals and meet the new CBA rules, while also securing Nick Claxton, Brook Lopez, Nicole Alexander Walker, and Dante Exum, always the non-taxpayer MLE. With LeBron accepting a considerable reduction, but I believe for players he considers valuable. In the end, this roster is much more balanced and has much more depth than last year's team. It's important to note that this is just one of my ideal options, but not the perfect one. It's just one of the possibilities I'm considering. No one knows if it can materialize. You can swap names if you like, based on the numbers I've provided, but this is just a perspective I believe would be quite beneficial and that fans would be satisfied with if it came to fruition. Therefore, my detailed and complex salary cap analysis for the team for the 2025 and 2026 seasons, involving LeBron and his salary reduction, is ongoing. In future videos, I will explore the scenario where LeBron doesn't make salary cuts and the alternatives the team can adopt in that context. I will also present videos where I examine different scenarios with signings and more specific names. Analyze the possibility where a key player decides not to accept a salary reduction and examine the alternatives the team has in this scenario. In future analysis, various contexts will be explored with detailed signings and specific names. If you find value in the information presented, I would appreciate your support through a subscription. Many interesting contents are coming as the off-season season progresses. It's important to clarify that I am not a salary cap expert or capologist. I leave this specialization to the professionals who have contributed in previous discussions. My experience focuses on the meticulous analysis of numbers for about a decade. While I have a reasonable understanding of the subject, I admit I might make mistakes. Therefore, if you notice any inconsistencies in my calculations, please feel free to share your observations in the comments. I believe I've clearly presented the available options for the team in this off-season. With this in mind, it's great to interact with the content and receive feedback. There is much more to discuss, and I hope to chat with everyone soon. Before we continue, we ask that you leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss any exclusive Lakers updates. Moving on. Rui Hachimura, one of the standout players of the Los Angeles Lakers, recently made a bold statement regarding his position on the team. After what has been a challenging season for the Lakers, Hachimura made it clear that he no longer accepts playing alongside Jason Hayes. The statement has left many fans and analysts stunned, as tensions have been simmering behind the scenes in the Lakers' locker room. While the exact reasons behind this decision remain unclear, sources close to the team suggest that there have been ongoing disagreements between Hachimura and Hayes over their respective roles and playing styles. Hachimura, known for his strong defensive presence and ability to stretch the floor, has often found himself in a difficult position when playing next to Hayes, whose role has been less defined and often fluctuates between center and power forward. The Lakers, already a team full of superstars and complex egos, seem to be feeling the effects of this tension, which could impact their future success. The Lakers, led by LeBron James and Anthony Davis, have been struggling to find consistent chemistry, and this latest revelation about Hachimura's discomfort adds to the growing list of challenges the team faces. Many fans are questioning whether the Lakers will be able to bounce back from these internal issues, especially with the pressure of competing in a loaded Western Conference. In recent interviews, Hachimura has hinted at his desire to take on a more prominent role in the team, something that he feels is hindered when playing alongside Hayes. There is speculation that the Lakers might look to trade Hayes in order to appease Hachimura and create a more harmonious roster. However, the Lakers are also trying to navigate the delicate balance between keeping their star players happy while also maintaining team cohesion. With the playoffs on the horizon, the Lakers can't afford to let internal conflicts disrupt their championship aspirations. On the other hand, Jason Hayes has not commented publicly on the situation, leaving fans to wonder about his perspective. While he has shown flashes of potential, his inconsistency on the court and inability to settle into a defined role have contributed to the friction between the two players. Hayes, like many role players in the NBA, might be struggling to find his place in a star-studded team like the Lakers, where expectations are high and the competition for minutes is fierce. This drama in the Lakers camp comes at a crucial point in their season, where every game counts toward securing a spot in the playoffs. Whether this issue between Hachimura and Hayes is resolved in the coming weeks or leads to a trade, it will undoubtedly be a major storyline in the NBA in the lead-up to the postseason. For now, all eyes are on the Lakers to see how they navigate this internal conflict while striving to reclaim their championship form. Stay informed exclusively about Los Angeles Lakers news. Subscribe to our channel and hit the like button to keep receiving daily updates. Also, share your opinion on the news in the comments, as your contribution is crucial for the Lakers. Stay tuned for the next video.